When I received the invitation from Wanjiru to participate in the 10th anniversary of AWARD, I had two immediate reactions. The first was, it's only 10 years? I mean, this is a program that has become very much a part of the African landscape. It's part of the African fabric. It has its own national anthem. The impacts that we've seen from AWARD across the continent are absolutely extraordinary. And to have done that in 10 years, it doesn't seem realistic. My second reaction was, 10 years already? Because it seems like just yesterday that we were putting this together, that we were giving birth to this baby. It was a period of incredible excitement, of hopes and dreams, and it had the energy of a startup. And those of you that have been engaged in that know what that means. So let me take you back to that startup period. So let me take you back to 2004. Vicky was the director of the Gender and Diversity Program here in Nairobi, and she was responsible for helping the CGIR centers become more gender aware, to change their policies and practices with respect to gender staffing and a range of other issues. And those of you who have worked with or in CGIR centers, as I have, know that's one hell of a big challenge to change the institutional culture of those institutions. And she was being very successful and very passionate about that. I was as Patricia mentioned, I was the managing director of the Rockefeller Foundation here in Nairobi. So in 2004, Vicky made an appointment to come in and talk to me in our Nairobi office and said, you know, the Rockefeller Foundation needs to do more in gender. And I've got the program for you, it's gender and diversity. And my response was, not really. The Rockefeller Foundation is committed to working, at that time, hopefully still is, committed to working with national programs, building national capacities, both personal and institutional. And so I basically told Vicky, you know, if you can come up with a program that will directly impact on national institutions, national researchers, where the need for gender-responsive ag research and development is just as great, if not greater, then let's talk. Well, Vicky left, disappointed. She didn't get the money for gender and diversity, but by no means defeated. She has a passion and she's also persistent. Several days later, Vicky and I were traveling to the US. And we just happened to be on the same BA flight out of Nairobi to London to make a 5-6 hour connection there to the US. As fortune would have it, or maybe you made the arrangement, Vicky and I sat next to each other on that BA flight to London. And normally when I get on a flight, an overnight like that, it's a long trip, I like to sleep. I wasn't able to sleep. We started brainstorming what might an appropriate priority program that could address the needs, the particular needs of national institutions in Africa, what could it look like? So we started brainstorming. She ordered coffee. I didn't want coffee. I really wanted to sleep. We kept talking. And we brainstormed, and some outlines emerged. I think I got a half an hour of sleep when we arrived in London. And we walked together to the lounge, sat down for another 4 or 5 hours, and very quickly began to draw the outlines of what came to be known as AWARD, what this fellowship program might look like. We said goodbye in London, took, I think, separate flights to the US. Vicki is not only passionate, as I said, she's persistent. Within days of us arriving back in Nairobi, she and Helga Recke had put together the outlines of a program, a fellowship program, which she brought into my office again, and we discussed it, and I loved it. It was great. We iterated back and forth, probably went through 3 or 4 different drafts, and what emerged in those drafts, basically the central pillars of Award today. So, I was committed to support that. We were able to put together some funding, and because I had limited funding, and because fellowships were not what G&D did, this was an experiment for them. It was new ground for them. We decided to design it as a pilot. So we designed it as a 3-year pilot, 2 cohorts, only work in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, and only in crop science. We launched the program. I attended a number of the events and was frankly blown away by the quality of the work, the passion of the work, and what I could see was the emerging transformation of the fellows that were engaged in this. Vicki commissioned then a evaluation of an assessment of outcomes and impacts by one of the top global assessment experts, Zenda Ophir, South African, I believe at Stellenbosch at the time. And she conducted an in-depth assessment of the outcomes and impacts on the fellows. What came through was absolutely extraordinary. We were able to rigorously measure transformation in the careers and in some respects the personalities of many of the fellows that came through the program. It was a success. We needed to continue it. I wanted to continue it and expand it. Unfortunately, as happens in foundations, we had a presidential transition. And the new president that came into the Rockefeller Foundation basically directed all program officers to phase out all of the ongoing programs, regardless of what success they were having. This is one of the flaws of donors, one of the flaws of many philanthropies, that they have a hard time recognizing their own success and then staying with it over time so they can multiply the impact. So I had to phase out the program. I couldn't fund it anymore. And we knew that we needed to find another donor. And I had been working with the very small agriculture team in the Gates Foundation for a 1.5 years before that in helping to design AGRA. So I contacted Seattle and said, look, there's a meeting in Washington, D.C. that I would like you to please send somebody who's interested in gender to that meeting, because I knew there was going to be a sidebar session that Gender and Diversity organized to talk to the donor community. And I was able to get a slot on that program to present award. And sure enough, Gates sent in one program officer who had interest and some background in gender, and I made sure that she was sitting in the front row when I made my presentation and told about the impacts that we were having, and then set up the first meeting between Vicki and that program officer. That then led to ongoing correspondence between Vicki, Gates, went through several iterations of proposals, and Gates stepped forward and stepped in where Rockefeller had to withdraw, and not only funded what we were funding, but they scaled it up. We decided to work with all of the AGRA countries, because the original design was that award would complement AGRA where it was working by empowering and mobilizing women scientists. We expanded it to all disciplines, both technical and socioeconomic. We put in a very, very strong M&E component, invested heavily in it, almost 10% of the budget, to generate very good information. Because one of the hallmarks of AWARD as it emerged was we were going to be a learning organization. We wanted to be able to know what worked, what didn't work, learn it fast, and feed that information back in to adjust our program. The program was launched. Gates asked me to play two roles in that new program. One was to be the chair of the initial steering committee, and the other was, believe it or not, to be the GATE representative on the first years of AWARD. I failed miserably in the second, and they quickly decided that wasn't a good decision because I could not honestly be objective about AWARD. I believed in it too much, and I really couldn't feed back to Gates the kind of critical comment that they might need. I really wanted to advocate for AWARD. And as to the first one, playing the role of the chair of the steering committee, I said, I'll take it under one circumstance, under one condition, and that is that it lasts for 1 year, and that I will be replaced by a senior, seasoned African woman scientist. To have an old, white, American male, that not only were the optics completely wrong, but I hadn't lived it, so I wouldn't have been an effective chair. Thank God on our steering committee, we had Stella Williams. Stella stepped in and provided brilliant leadership thereafter. So it's been an incredible voyage of discovery, and I am so thankful that I had the opportunity to play a small role in this incredibly satisfying enterprise. I have to say, as I look back on my career, this has, without question, been the most satisfying, personally satisfying engagement that I've been able to work within. So I thank you all for the opportunity.